every soul. Family ties, tangle, spaghetti in a maze. Growing up in this world of non-stop craze. Through Wonderland's gates we unlock the scene. Heartfelt confessions mixed with caffeine. Identity a mirror, emotions on the grind. Relationships weave webs tangled in the mind. Dad had a dad joke, mom had a battle cry. Bro screaming GTA, sister waving goodbye. Chaos at the dinner table, feelings hit the wall. Trying to grow tall, but the ceiling's way too small. Through Wonderland's gates we unlock the scene. Heartfelt confessions mixed with caffeine. Identity a mirror, emotions on the grind. Relationships weave webs tangled in the mind.
Welcome back to Wonderland Unlocked, where we explore life's twists and turns through a Wonderland lens. I'm Courtney, and today we're diving deep into the sorrowful world of the mock turtle, where tears flow, but only one side of the story gets heard. Have you ever felt like no matter how much you struggle, your family only sees their own pain? Like you're drowning, but they're too busy complaining about how wet they're getting? That's what we're exploring today. We'll talk about why some families censor their own struggles instead of recognizing yours, how this dynamic affects your emotional well-being, and ways to break free from the cycle without losing yourself in the process. So let's follow the mock turtle's trail of tears and see where it leads. If you remember Alice in Wonderland, the mock turtle is a creature of endless sorrow. He weeps and weeps, telling his tragic tale. And yet, what's his story, really? He used to be a real turtle, and now he's, what? Different? Not what he once was. A mockery of his former self, in his eyes. And for that, he suffers. But when you listen closely, there's something odd about the mock turtle's sadness. It feels like he's grieving more over the idea of who he used to be than who he is now. He's fixated on the version of himself that others might have found easier to accept. Sound familiar? Many of us, especially those who've grown, changed, or unraveled in ways our families can't or won't understand, become the mock turtle. We carry our pain, we sit with it, sometimes we even try to share it, but when we do, it's overshadowed. Not by empathy, not by compassion, but by their distress. Their sorrow about how you've changed. Their anxiety about how difficult things have become for them. Their fear, their anger, their confusion. All of it louder than your own heartbreak. And that's what we're diving into. Let's break it down. How families rewrite the story. You say, I've been hurting for years. And they respond with, but you used to be so happy. You explain, I felt alone growing up. And they say, we gave you everything. They rewrite the story, not to understand you better, but to protect themselves from discomfort, from accountability, from the ache of realizing that they may have missed something important. Sometimes it's not even malicious. Sometimes it's a survival mechanism. But even if they're not trying to harm you, that doesn't mean it's harmless. It's easier in a twisted way to say you changed than I didn't notice you were hurting. Easier to say you're being too sensitive than maybe I didn't show up for you the way you needed. It's easier for them to mourn who they thought you were than to face who you've become and why. Here's the truth they may not be ready to accept. You didn't just change. You adapted. You survived. You learned to protect yourself in a world that wasn't built to see you clearly. And maybe that world included your family. When families only see their own pain, you start to wonder if your own feelings are even real. You might hear a voice in your head whisper, maybe I am being dramatic. Maybe I should just let it go. Maybe I am the problem. And that voice is heavy. It's not just internal, it's inherited. It's been mirrored back to you in so many times that you start to actually believe it. You may shrink yourself, silence yourself, even scold yourself for needing care, for needing space, for needing anything that inconveniences someone else. That's the mock turtle sorrow. It's not just about grief, it's about being unseen, about performing pain in a way that doesn't get acknowledged. It's telling your story and realizing the listener is only hearing how your sadness affects them. The mock turtle isn't just sad, it's theoretical about it. There's something exaggerated, even absurd, about his constant weeping. And sometimes we find ourselves doing the same, trying to prove how hurt we are. Crying harder, explaining longer, repeating ourselves over and over because maybe, just maybe, if we say it right this time, they'll finally understand. But the truth is, no amount of emotional proof will make someone see what they're unwilling to see. That kind of grief turns into exhaustion. So now what? Here's the thing. The mock turtle's tears may never stop, but that doesn't mean Alice has to sit and listen forever. You don't have to keep pleading your case to people who only want to hear the version of your story that makes them comfortable. You can honor your pain without performing it. You can grieve what was lost without trying to convince others it mattered. You can grieve what was lost without trying to convince others it mattered. And you can give yourself the compassion they never offered. This isn't about cutting people off. It's about letting yourself step out of the loop. Your sorrow doesn't have to be a permanent stage show. It can be a private truth, a sacred truth, one that lives within you without demanding anyone else's approval. So take a breath, a deep one. If you've been the mock turtle in your family story, always explaining, always hurting, always being dismissed, know this. You're not wrong for feeling what you feel. You're not broken for needing what they never gave. You've just been mourning in a place that couldn't hold your grief. And now, you're allowed to move on. Let's talk about the frustrating reality. Some families seem to have an endless supply of empathy for themselves, but very little left for you. Have you ever heard something like, I've done so much for you, and this is how you treat me? Or maybe, it's not my fault you feel this way. Or the classic, you're just being dramatic. So what's happening here? Let's break it down. Projection. Sometimes family members project their guilt or discomfort onto you. They can't handle the idea that they've hurt you, so they flip the narrative. Martyrdom mindset. If they see themselves as the victim, it absolves them of accountability. Emotional blindness. They genuinely might not have the capacity to see beyond their own experiences. So what do you do when empathy flows in one direction? You're left feeling unseen. First, you validate yourself. Your pain is real, whether they acknowledge it or not. Second, you learn to step back when conversations become circular. And third, well, we'll talk about boundaries in a bit. Being caught in this dynamic can have real consequences. Gaslighting yourself. When no one validates your feelings, you start doubting yourself. Hyper-independence or learning helplessness. You either shut everyone out or feel powerless. Emotional exhaustion, carrying not just your pain, but theirs too, is draining. I want to pause here and acknowledge something. If this episode is hitting home, you're not alone. This is hard stuff. If you grew up with caregivers who always made it about them, you might be carrying years of self-neglect. But healing is possible. The first step, recognizing what's happening, and that's what we're doing right now. All right, so what do we do about this? How can we step out of the mock turtle's endless weeping loop? Reclaim your narrative. Your pain is valid. Your story matters, even if they refuse to hear it. Detach from guilt. You're not responsible for their discomfort when you set boundaries. Find safe spaces. Seek out people who hear you, see you, and hold space for your experiences. Let's talk about what boundaries can look like. Emotional boundaries. I can't continue this conversation if my feelings aren't being acknowledged. Time boundaries, limiting how much energy you invest in these relationships. Expectation boundaries, accepting that they may never change, and choosing peace anyways. At the end of the day, we all have a choice. We can stay locked in someone else's sorrow, or we can choose to rewrite our own story. The mock turtle never really moves on. He keeps telling the same old story over and over. But you can step away. You can find healing. So I want you to ask yourself, where am I stuck in someone else's pain? What would happen if I let go of the guilt? And who in my life actually sees me? It's okay if the answers aren't clear yet. Just start asking questions. This is one of those episodes that might take time to sink in. If your family has always centered their own pain, breaking free from that cycle won't happen overnight, but it can happen. If this resonated with you, I encourage you to journal about it, talk to a trusted friend, or just sit with it. Let yourself feel whatever comes up. And if you need a reminder, your pain is real and your story matters, even if the people closest to you don't see it. I do. Thank you for spending this time with me. As always, you can find more episodes of Wonderland Unlocked wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.